Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I see our attendees are coming in as we start, so I'll go ahead and get started this morning. So good morning and welcome to our statewide school facilities monthly meeting, CASH's monthly meeting. I am Alan Rising. I'm the Business Services Administrator for Long Beach Unified School District, and I'm also the CASH Vice Chair, taking over for Jeff Becker, who's out having a family vacation. So I'll be handling our meeting this morning. So it's an interesting time. I'll kind of, we usually chat a little bit about what's happening in school facilities, pretty much in Long Beach, which I think most districts around our state. We're heavily involved in our summer program, our summer construction program, and our summer work, our summer cleaning work. I kind of had a little bit of a realization just this week that we are just a short 4 weeks away from our students and our community returning back to our schools. So time is running out as we look at all of the work that we have to do, all of the preparations that we have to make to start a new 2022-2023 school year. So it's been an interesting time as we've managed through all of the different things, including heightened COVID exposures, and we've all seen that up and down the state as we're managing through some of the lack of staffing or the staff working from home when went through exposures and all of that. So I'm sure we're each kind of managing through that as we go forward. But it's an exciting time, and we're happy to be here. We've got a lot of great stuff that's happening all up and down the state, I'm sure. So with that, I just want to remind everyone that you are muted as an attendee, but we do want to hear your questions and comments. We'd like to see those in the chat, so please use that for your purposes as things go through or discussed during our presentation. Please let us know your comments or your questions. We'll be monitoring those throughout the presentation and addressing those questions as they come in. If you are a first-time attendee, please throw a chat out to us, acknowledge yourself, welcome. If you're a first-time attendee, we'd like to know who you are. So please put your name and information in the chat so we can know who's here. And lastly, we want to remind everyone who's attending that this is a no marketing zone. So we'd ask you to refrain from marketing conversations in the chat. We're here to get information from our state partners as we move forward, and not a marketing opportunity. So with that, I'd like to jump to the first slide. So as a quick reminder, our fall CASH conference is rapidly coming. It is on October the 12th through the 14th in Newport Beach. This is our Southern California venue. It will be at the Hyatt Regency Newport Beach. This year, CASH heard a lot of feedback from folks in the pre-conference or post-conference feedback, and we are offering expanded opportunities for professional development on the first day of the conference. This is our pre-conference workshop. So take a look at the information, the brochure that's available on the CASH website. There's a lot of opportunities on that Wednesday. But also additional opportunities throughout the conference as we hear updates from various professionals in our industry on what's happening statewide. Registration is now open, and to register, to find information about hotel registrations, to find information on registering for the conference, please visit our CASH website, and there's plenty of information available there for you. So moving on. I think we're going to call up our first attendee from the California Department of Education. We have John Gordon from CDE that's going to tell us a little bit about what's happening in CDE. So John, welcome. Thanks for being here today with us.
Well, aloha. I hope everyone's doing well. If you can look in the background, I think I see Jeff Becker and his family is walking behind me. So I'm here. I just want to make that clear for all those folks out there. I hope everyone's having a very busy and productive summer. I know we're, as Alan was mentioning, it's getting here at the tail end of this very stressful to get things in place to get folks back to school, our kiddos. So I just had really a couple updates. We have hired a new education programs consultant, that being Haley Jensen. And if you're familiar, Haley previously worked at the Office of Public School Construction, and even a former life worked actually in our office at the Department of Education. And so she started here in my office last Tuesday, and we're in the process of onboarding her, which is going to take a little bit of time. So I'm looking to change territories. As some of you in Southern California may know, that before my arrival as an education administrator, I served as a field rep and had, San Diego, Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial, all those Southern California counties. And so as we get toward maybe at the end of the year and into next year, I will be shifting maybe a couple of folks along as we integrate Haley into a territory. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. But in the meantime, obviously, I am working with my composite of field reps to make sure that we are being responsive to your projects and reviewing those architectural plans. Outside of that, just a couple reminders. Again, I am working with staff, my analysts, the analysts in our office, as well as our field reps, about making an earnest effort to turn projects around within 90 days once we receive them. It's always in your best interest to make sure that that your documents are complete and thorough, whether it's the SFP 407 or the 408 plan summary, if that's required, the architectural plans, site, floor, interiors, exteriors, anything else that may be relevant to our review. So that'll help improve and help get our processes through, so we can be responsive to your needs. One other thing I should also bring up is we've had some conversations before, and it's worth bringing up again, the subject of whether a district has a project and they're superseding a project, and what constitutes a supersede based on our reviews. In some cases, if you have an approval letter that has been expired, that approval letter is now dead. And so it's kind of two things that can happen with that, especially when you have an older project and now maybe some scopes have been added. Considering that the project is dead, there's one of two things you could do. You could seek a renewal for that particular scope of project, and then you could submit a separate submittal for the additional scope of project that would be reviewed. They could have the same project tracking number. You can put two letters, give them both to OPSC, you're going to be funded just the same. But typically when we're looking at supersedes, it's generally because you're removing things out. And so when you're adding things in some cases, once we've done a review and it's completed, it's done. And so we don't, in most cases, aren't going to come back and add more things to that project that should have been done, when you initially submitted that. So it may require really a separate review. And again, you'll have two approval letters, but they both should work in terms of getting your state funding. So just a couple reminders there. Outside of that, I'd take any questions if there are any.
So John, Tom Duffy here. Are you going to stick with Orange County? They seem to really appreciate you down in Orange County.
I could think about making a special guest star appearance, but there's a lot of other things I need to focus on. I'm really working with one of my field reps to get her more acquainted with some of the territory down there, and I think they're really going to be happy with her. In fact, it's probably going to be a great improvement, to be honest.
Will she be as much fun to talk with as you? You always seem to really enjoy the sparring.
Well, Tom, I'm going to give her my dancing shoes, because I know that when you come to Orange County, Tom Duffy is there. You better be prepared to do a little dancing.
Well, you're a good dancer, John. Thank you.
I always let you lead.
Yeah. Hey, John, while I have you, a question that I do have is, Maybe you can give us a little bit of an update with the work that CD is doing with the gender neutral restroom, gender neutral topic, and maybe where we are with some of that work.
Thank you for that. I definitely appreciate that. In fact, I was looking at our draft guidance with my colleague Leslie Taylor and going through and finalizing that. For those who may not know, back in, let's see, January of 2021, and even back into 2020, we've had some architects that have approached us and discussed about how do you go about designing a block of restrooms. I'm not quite sure what the terminology, I think it's, you know, we're crossed between gang of restrooms, a block of restrooms, segment of restrooms, but really multiple water closets in one location, which you typically see with the boys and the girls, but now, you know, having something that would be inclusive to all students or any students. And we started a process beginning in January 2021 to really evaluate that, because there's a lot of design challenges that go with that, and there's a really strong tension between providing a facility to use a restroom for any and all users that create a safe environment for students, but also the supervision and the safety from an adult in terms of just making sure that there's no shenanigans, and that, you know, people are there to use the facilities because they need to use the facilities, and that they're not doing things that they shouldn't be doing, whether it's related to self-harm, whether it's related to maybe drug use, maybe you know, it could be bullying. You know, those are some of the challenges, I think, when you're designing these facilities. And through the course of last year, I think we've kind of rounded up our draft guidance, and Superintendent Thurman has actually created a working group coming into this year. And with that working group, we've been integrated and participating with that group and getting additional feedback. We're at the tail end of providing something on the web with somewhat of the disclaimer that what we're providing is, this is what our best, you know, what our best knowledge is at this point. And we feel that as things continue to evolve, and I know with Long Beach, there's been conversations of that evolution actually moving over to locker rooms.
Yes.
And some of those challenges, and really welcome to have some of that dialogue. You know, this will continue to grow, so it's not like a guidance that's going to be stamped and then put up on a shelf. We think it's something that we're going to continue to improve upon as designs come about. So I'm hoping here within the next 4 weeks to have something on the web.
Great. Yeah, I know you're right in saying that it is an issue that is particularly challenging here in Long Beach, that we're currently managing our way through the concept of inclusion and gender equality and all of those things. One of the issues that I know that we've really addressed or daylighted, I should say, in this process that we've been through is the various different components of the code, whether it's Title 24 or it's Title 5 or it's, you know, or it's the health and safety codes, are sprinkled with very binary references throughout the code, right? That talk about the installation of male or female facilities, and the requirement that we install a very, in some cases, specific number of male and female facilities. And so just as more of a comment or a suggestion, really looking closely at what does Title V say in that regard, and how might there need to be some revisions in that document in order to allow for some of the current flexibility that I think districts are currently dealing with and will be dealing with in the future as we continue to move this issue forward.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And to your point, I understand DSA is starting to look at that on their end with the building code, and I I want to say they had a meeting. Unfortunately, I don't think Ida's with us today, but that would be interesting because they've obviously have kind of followed up on this and understand that as this becomes more, I guess, of the norm, that some of these existing codes, regulations are a bit antiquated and are not really reflective of our student population, and we need to address that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. There was a quick question just popped up in the chat, and it's looks like Tom Silva. He's looking for the fit tool, the new fit tool in an Excel format. So I don't know, has CDE provided that on the website? Is that available somewhere for folks to be to access?
Should be on the OPSC website. Tom, I'll see if I could follow up with you offline on that, because it's usually on the OPSC end. I know they just finalized it, adopting some revisions to that. So.
Got it. Good, good. Question came in from Nancy Charles Espinoza, just more for us, with increasing numbers of students identifying as non-binary or trans, how are we to estimate demand for a third bathroom changing facility? And so that's a great question, Nancy. I think that that's kind of right at the core of the concern related to the very binary code. What is the appropriate number when you think about a facility that is non-gender specific? Does it count as a male or a female? How does it get added into the total amount of calculated fixtures that are needed? And that's where we struggle for those of us that are working on designs to try to deal with this, to make sure that we have some guidance in how do you calculate it. It can be used by either gender, but does it count to either gender, or do we have to build entirely separate third facilities?
And that's really good comment. I think from CDE's perspective, in light of this, in light of our guidance, our North Star, so to speak, is coming back to how are we addressing the needs of all students? And at the end of the day, we're maybe some folks have some heartburn over this issue or don't quite understand it. We have to address the needs of all students, and so our guidance is certainly not requiring that every school and every restroom facility needs to be non-binary, all access, gender neutral, whatever the term we're using. I think from our perspective, we are trying to really support and invoke the thought of choice, student choice, giving more student choice. If a female feels more comfortable using the traditional female restroom, she should have access to that. If others, if they want to use an all gender, it doesn't matter. Just like when you run a 5K race or 10K race, right? All the porta potties, whatever that may be, it's about supporting all students and creating a safe and really inclusive environment to do, to be able to do it, a bodily function that, quite frankly, I think for many students, it's a source of stress in terms of feeling safe and being able to do something that they need to do, and it can take away from their learning, quite frankly.
Yeah, John, it's Tom Duffy again, Alan. There's a bill. It's not intended to affect school districts, but that would allow cities and counties and other jurisdictions that would permit under the code for modifications to do what you were suggesting, John. We've had a conversation with DSA about this, and they may be able to provide some guidance. So it's something that I think is developmental at this point in time, but clearly there's a focus on the policy side as well as on the code side. That the bill that I mentioned, and I won't go into it, that doesn't affect schools would allow the code to be interpreted to equip restrooms so that they could be individualized. It could have a toilet as well as a urinal in a separate compartment.
Yeah.
that kind of approach is envisioned.
And I, just to kind of add one thing, from our perspective, just taking a traditional boys or girls restroom, pulling the sign off and then calling it all inclusive isn't going to cut it, because we recognize, and I think some of the architects, design leaders, and even school district folks that we've talked to understand there needs to be other considerations related to supervision. You need to be very thoughtful in that design process, and really that's what we're trying to get at with this guidance, is providing levels of support, some things for folks to consider when they're embarking upon this.
Yeah, I think, John, you're right. When we did that several years ago with single-use restrooms, it was fairly easy. It was literally almost a matter of just pulling a sign down and putting a new sign up. But now that we're talking about multi-use facilities, it does create a host of additional considerations that need to be taken into account as we move forward. So, but I thank you for that. I thank you for the comments and suggestions as we go forward. And we do look to collaborate closely with CDE as we look to meet the needs of our society, right, as we evolve. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're ready to kind of move on. I just want to move to the next step. We don't have anyone from DSA here today with us, but they will be back at our next workshop. But we do want to move into our cash legislative and regulatory update, and we're going to bring in Ian Padilla to talk a little bit about some of the regulatory updates that are happening. And
thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Good morning. Just quickly, since we had a little time, I did want to say I really appreciated the discussion we just had on the general gender neutral non-binary restroom issues. A lot of folks know I work in the kind of the school M&O world. A lot of questions about that as well. I'm not going to get into specifics, but just reinforcing the necessity, I think, of the kind of good discussion we had there. I found that helpful. So just to say, yeah, sometimes some weeks I'll get one or two a week just asking, sometimes more general questions, sometimes more at the level we're talking about here. So I, usually try to give them resources and kind of, tell them what I know at the time. But yeah, I thought good discussion. So anyway, other good timing. Is I appreciate the discussion about the FIT document. Everyone knows the FIT, some of the materials have been updated, right? That was done, I think, approved by the SAB in June. And so there is supposed to be a new FIT document in Excel form. Of course, we had some of our very bright members already asking about that. I saw. And so it's been a really good discussion in the comment section. You can see what's happening is it's not available. It was just confirmed on the comments. I actually contacted Michael Watanabe yesterday to get some clarification on it. He's out a few days. He'll get back to me, but I just wanted to let you know that's high on our priority, because those some of those are due and folks need to start using those. Both M&O folks, also county offices are contacting me about that. I would say in the last couple of weeks, 5, 6, 7. So it's good to have this discussion in real time and to confirm that, yeah, there isn't a FIT document or a FIT document in Excel form right now. There was some confusion about that. So we'll continue to drill down on that. I'm sure OPSC is working on that, but we know it's an issue of interest widely going forward for the Williams inspections and so on. It is some new material. It's maybe not a whole new thing, but there's definitely some new pieces that you need to look at, some new information required, some calculations of square footage and so on. Yeah, so something that's important, and glad our members brought it up. So. There's that. I was going to talk about that last, but it came up, and I'm glad it did. So I'm going to talk about a couple of pieces here. One, a bill, legislation, and then also some regulations kind of under our general issue areas here. So SB 1144, and you've heard me and others talk about that. That is basically is, you could call it a pipe replacement program for schools required, but there's no funding available for that. So it has a real building systems approach rather than a water quality approach, which schools already do under SB or AB 746. And that's kind of what we would like to do. Cash is build on that. If we were to take a look at that, this bill is not that. This is a much more top-down approach that would cost funding, require inspection of water systems for not only lead, but Legionella. There's no reported cases of Legionella in schools. So there's a lot of pieces on that. This one, so obviously Cash is continuing to oppose this bill, basically because it's too big. There's too many pieces to it, and it's not very well thought out at all. And the result would be it's very complicated, and the cost implications could be significant. So we've had some of our members develop some of those cost figures, and we're getting those to decision makers. Others, the Legionella Coalition is also actually opposed to it. They think they shouldn't be included in the bill. So they're actually developing their own cost impact information, which is good news. The bill will be heard next week in the Appropriations Committee, and Cash and other school districts are meeting as a coalition with the sponsors of the bill to again express some of our concerns with the bill. I'll end on the bill and saying that a lot of times Cash and a couple others are the only ones opposing this bills like this, but here we have a very broad educational coalition that includes AXA, CASBO, CSBA, Riverside County Office, LAUSD, others who definitely recognize the implications of the bill, and so have done a joint letter and are continuing to oppose the bill and work with stakeholders. So, but I wanted to continue to highlight this bill because water quality, right? We've been talking a lot about air quality, as we should, but this is one that's really forcing the discussion at the policy level and regulatory level and legislative level of water quality again. So wanted to highlight that for you. I will say that we'll dig deeper into the bill next Friday, I believe, not this coming, but next. We're going to have a Cash Legislative Advisory Committee, and so we can have a more a robust discussion about some of the issues involved in the bill and some of the coalition pieces and so on. So there's that one. So as well as other bills that Cash is following, but this is one of the biggest with a direct impact on school facilities. Typically, it's the school bond bills, but of course, a lot of that discussion happened, as you know, through the budget process. So this is one of the bigger ones for facilities. So if you're interested in diving more into that and some of the other bills, definitely next Friday, Cash Legislative Advisory Committee. I'll wrap up my comments.
Ian, just one thing.
Go ahead, Tom.
This is one of those bills that's the scary kind of bill where there are all the pieces aren't included, so we don't really know everything that's required or would be required. There's no funding source. The demand would be districts have to come up with the funds to be able to meet whatever these requirements would be, and therefore it is a black hole, right?
That's exactly right. And one of the pieces that, you know, there's never enough funding for us, but you notice it's not just school facilities folks that are opposing this bill, and that's a recognition of it affects school facilities certainly, but there will be an operational impact, it's anticipated. That's why some of these other folks are interested, right? Some of these so-called bigs on the operational side. So that's exactly right, Tom. It's greater demand on classified employees in a school district, demands that aren't there right now. And Ian, Joshua asked if you would repeat the bill number again and the author, yes,
please.
Absolutely. It's SB 1144 by Senator Wiener. And we'll have a more, again, a deeper dive into it next Friday, but also we'll have updates going out to full membership once the bill, see what happens in the appropriations committee. So, but yeah, definitely one to follow. I didn't want to take up too much time. We could go an hour on this one, but at any rate, yeah, that's an important piece of legislation. So quickly on regulatory issues and our earlier discussion kind of highlighted it, how important these are: the building code, Cal Green, the Energy Commission, and so on. A couple of issues that we're continuing to follow. Cal Green has a couple of subcommittees going that have some impact on school facilities and maintenance, significant in some cases. One is a EV charging station infrastructure requirement. And so there's a lot of focus on that, what that requires, all the way down to the parking lot level, let's say. So cash is involved in those, as well as another one that's very significant in highlighting an issue, embedded carbon in building materials. There is a stakeholder, a green building code stakeholder group focused on that. And that's a significant issue in general. There's been legislation introduced in that area. An example is, what does that mean? An example is there's some discussion about that, of the carbon impact and carbon embedded in concrete. There's one example, but basically the carbon impact of building and building materials. So it's an issue. And so that's obviously of interest to our group. And so we're involved in that group as well. Again, providing the school district lens, whether, we're representing that. How do these things, worthy goals, impact us schools, both from a fiscal perspective as well as an operational perspective, planning and so on, right? We're largely planners. And so we're looking at the impact of that as well. And I saw Lance Bidnick, I think on the I'll close down here, Lance Bidnick on the comments, also talking about implementing SB 1383, organic waste recycling. It's not unknown. Hey, Lance, it's not unknown at all as an issue, right? At the last cash conference, there was workshops. We had some agency presence, which is good, but Lance and I talked, I don't know, a few weeks ago or so on that, we need to do some more work on that. There is definitely school facility impacts and some challenges. And so kind of under the CMN flag, Cash Maintenance Network, we'll pull together a group and see where we need to go next on that. So it's kind of good news in the sense is we're not trying to highlight the issue anymore. There's a lot of awareness of it, but we want to sharpen the tool a little bit for some advocacy and see where kind of stake it out for schools like we're doing with these other agencies. So yes, I see Tony. Yes, we do need funding for this. That's yeah, we need funding, and I think more agency support. And we need the local agencies to talk to the state agency more. But anyway, I'm going to conclude my presentation on that. And I'm glad there's so much interest, and turn it over to my colleague, Rebecca, so she can give her piece.
It's okay. Can I pop in before Rebecca?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. I didn't know who was going next. Thank you, Nancy.
All good.
Good to see you.
It's all good. So I'm going to give a little bit of context to what Ian has been telling you all about. Good morning, everyone. The legislature is approaching its end of session with a lot of work still to be done, as you can see from what Ian is talking about. The policy committees finish their work right before the start of the summer recess, and the legislature reconvenes this Monday from its summer recess, August 1st. The surviving bills have to be approved by their appropriations committees in their respective houses by Friday, August 12th. So it's a little bit more than a couple of weeks. And after that, both houses go into a 2.5-week period where it's floor session only. That is the only place where the official work is taking place. They do occasionally do some kind of emergency off the floor hearings as things arise, but there will be no scheduled hearings of policy committees or fiscal committees during that last 2.5 weeks of session. And with respect to the budget cycle, I bet you all thought we were done. We're not. I know school districts are still trying to figure out what that budget bill junior and the trailer bills meant for them specifically. You are in good company. And the reason is some of this could still change and is changing. So some of the expenditures or sources of funding that were provided for school districts, like kitchen infrastructure or EV bus replacement, require regulations to be developed or guidelines to be developed before you can determine what your district or what your project will qualify for. And the state agencies are really in the early stages of doing that work right now. So we're looking at you, John, looking forward to hear about that kitchen infrastructure funding. The energy and environmental part of the budget is still being developed. If you will recall, that part was deferred in the deal that was struck earlier this summer. So that trailer bill is still in development, and I will elaborate a little bit more on what that means for schools during the School Energy Coalition update. With that, I'm happy to toss it to Rebecca.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everybody. Just a quick update on where we landed with transitional kindergarten funding, and then I want to connect it to a recent state allocation board action. So in this budget cycle for the 22-23 budget, we have $100 million additional dollars coming from the general fund for preschool, transitional kindergarten, and full day kindergarten facilities. And there's also language that provides the intent to appropriate an additional $550 million general fund next fiscal year. So that would be 23-24. This was consistent with the legislature's version of their budget during negotiations between the legislature and the administration. They had proposed $650 million. So it looks like that's just where we landed on the number, though $100 million of that is in the current fiscal year. This is an exciting win, I think. While less than the $2 billion that Cash had requested, the governor was at $0 new dollars for transitional kindergarten facilities. So we're excited to see that money in the budget. For those 2021 grants, the $490 million that was provided, it looks like the state allocation board is planning to allocate those dollars at their September SAB meeting. And remember, that's a $225 million funding round for the first round. And then the second round will open up next April. There were $1.28 billion in applications submitted for that first round. So lots of competition. And most of those applications were for new construction rather than retrofit. I want to link this to an issue that the state allocation board addressed recently, and that's the issue of piggybacks and the use of piggybacks for modular facilities on permanent foundations. So as you all know, the state allocation board did act to prohibit the use of piggybacks for modular facilities on permanent foundations for state funded projects. Doesn't speak to locally funded projects, but for state funded projects. When they took that action, they also provided a grace period for construction contracts that were signed within 60 calendar days of that board action. So that puts you at August 21st of 2022. If you get your contract signed before that, you're within the grace period and that prohibition does not apply. We were curious how this action would affect our transitional kindergarten applications, in particular, the applications that were submitted in this April 2022 filing round. And just wanted to clarify for folks, and we did get this clarified by the Office of Public School Construction as well, that grace period is specific only to construction contract date signature. And so many of the projects that were submitted in the April 22 application for the TK funding don't have contracts yet. And so your project may be affected by this state allocation board action. So there's no wiggle room based on application date. It's holding firm at the construction contract date within 60 days of that state allocation board action. We know that there's a lot of confusion about what all of this means. What is modular? Where do the piggyback prohibitions apply, et cetera? So we'd recommend that you do consult your attorney if you've got questions about that, and to certainly take a look at the Office of Public School Construction website, as they have now added a resource page there to provide a little bit more guidance. But did just want to connect those dots, as we know that a lot of applications were submitted by our members to that funding round. So with that, I will pass it back.
Rebecca, Tom Duffy here for just one moment. In seeking to clarify with OPSC shortly after that meeting of the allocation board, we asked if contracts are signed by the date that you identified, August the 21st, but if delivery does not happen until sometime actually in even the next calendar year, 2023, is that sufficient? And their response was yes, as long as the contract was signed by that date. So just wanting to share that.
That's excellent clarification and additional information, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. I know just as a comment, there's a lot of work. I want to thank Ian, Rebecca, and Nancy for all the great work that they're doing to really stay on top of the legislative and regulatory updates. Many of these, specifically the Green Code, are going to have some very direct and substantial impacts to the work that we do out in schools. So really, as we stay on top of that and make sure that we are able to quantify how these impacts are going to affect the work that we do in our school district is very important. So thank you, Ian, Nancy, and Rebecca. I don't see any questions in our chat at this time, so I think we're going to move to the Energy Coalition, and I think we're going to call Nancy back up to give us a quick update on the School Energy Coalition. Or perhaps is it Ian or Rebecca that's going to give us a quick update here?
I can do it, Alan, or I can do a piece, Alan. I think Nancy has a piece, but you had just spoken of the Green Code.
Yeah.
So the Green Code has, and I refer to it, the EV charging infrastructure stakeholder work group. I think they've met 3 times. They're having a couple of more meetings through the first of the year, or through the end of the year. So the School Energy Coalition, actually Janet Dixon, who's the chair of the School Energy Coalition, provided some testimony and basically got the School Energy Coalition as a member of the stakeholder group to provide specific information about. She's done some very nice research on the cost impacts of some of the requirements of the parking and how much parking schools actually need and so on. And so yeah, that's been very, very helpful, both for the School Energy Coalition to be a part of the discussion, but also provide the school specific cost impacts and also planning impacts, so on, things like that. So that's a piece I've worked on. Is Nancy available yet?
I apologize, folks.
Oh,
I had
no,
some
no
audio
worries.
issues. Thank you for
No
jumping in.
worries, I'm done.
Thank you. So really quick update from me as well. We're working with some of our partner organizations to hopefully secure some additional funding for the CalShape program from what is remaining to be allocated in this year's budget. There's continues to be a desire out there from a lot of folks to restrict kitchen infrastructure funding to electric appliances only. We have secured an agreement that will be structured as a sort of an incentive to allow a pathway for those with legitimate reasons to not being able to go all electric to still secure funding. This is modeled on the language that we got into the EV bus replacement program, which allows you still to make your case if there's a reason that you can't go all electric to still apply for and obtain funding. And I believe Ian talked a lot about the work that our members in SEC are doing with respect to all of the many state agencies, and just want to thank everyone who has given of their time. It is so important to have your voice in those conversations. And I think that's all that we have for SEC.
Good. Yeah, just a quick comment here for folks that are really looking closely at some of the new requirements in the Green Code and new sustainability model that's being pushed forward by the state. I believe what Ian was referring to is a lot of these new requirements are going to have some very direct and in some cases negative impacts to schools that potentially struggle for parking or don't have parking. I know I'm very much an urban district that in many cases does not have enough parking. A lot of these new requirements, specifically via electric vehicle charging, will take away availability for parking for non-electric vehicles, which still is the largest bulk of our commuter fleet. So take a look at that. Realize that effective as of January the 1st, any project that's submitted to DSA that will impact parking will have to have these charging systems put in place. Not just the infrastructure, which we've been dealing with for several years now, but actual vehicle charging stations, whether or not you need them. Now, I believe, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've heard some words from DSA that DSA will entertain a hardship, especially in areas where they don't have electric vehicles, or that it's not feasible to do electric vehicles. Some of the more remote areas, there's potential there that you could file for some hardship with DSA, and they will at least entertain that moving forward. But sustainability is here. The green code is ratcheting down, and it's just going to continue to move forward with the overall goal that the state has established of 100% renewable power by 2045. So as we
really good comment, Alan, particularly it highlights DSA's involvement in all this. Obviously, they're one of our big agencies, and they're with the Building Standards Commission and Green Code discussions. They're kind of like co-chair in the discussions and the development, because they have to, put it in the context of the building code and so on. So yeah, they're pretty big issues. And while we're talking about it, the issue we haven't even talked about is solar and storage. Those requirements as well. That might even in total impact be bigger than all of these more immediately. So anyway, yes, on top of it, all these agency and regulatory issues as important in many ways as budget and legislation. So you see a lot of focus on that. So yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you. So I think, Ian, you might be up again for the CSF update.
Yeah. So yeah, good. It's quick, but I'm glad to be able to do this for Dave Walrath. Basically, the CSF, Californians for School Facilities, is planning their lobbying trip September, the 12th, 13th, and 14th. So as you know, everyone knows, and we've talked a lot about it, Tom's put on great workshops and webinars about the federal pieces, the federal funding that is available. All of these things that we've talked about hasn't been the total solution, but a lot of folks, I'm thinking air quality, HVAC, a lot of folks immediately use some of these funds. So obviously the focus is on to support more grants, tax credit bonds, and then particularly I want to get the name right again, Rebuild America's Schools Act. That's of course focused on school safety, climate change, and of course those are kind of buzzwords, but those really in a school context are kind of all the issues that we've kind of talked about for an hour here. So trying to, again, keep that federal communication and obviously keep the funding pipeline going for those issues as long as it lasts. It's been vital and definitely, we know, part of the mix going forward to address all these issues. So that's it.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I do know there's quite a bit of work I've set into some of those conversations nationally about addressing standards for indoor air quality universally across the nation, as they really as the pandemic has exposed the differences across our nation related to indoor air quality, and which ultimately will lead to the potential for some of those federal grants and federal programs to provide money out to school sites to help improve those indoor air quality issues that we have. So it's great work, and thank you, Ian and Dave and all the folks from Californians for School Facilities and the work that they're doing in Washington, D.C. Very much appreciate it. So moving on to the next slide, as we get close to the end here, just a quick reminder for everyone, we have our 44th annual conference on school facilities that is set for February the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th in Sacramento. There's information available for you on our CASH website for registration for the event. For information will be available for our hotels, for exhibitors, for sponsorships. Information will be coming out very, very soon. For those of you that may have submitted topics for the workshop, Later today, our conference planning committee will be meeting where we will be finalizing all of the topics. So if you're an individual that submitted a fantastic workshop and you're anxiously on the edge of your seat, waiting to hear if your workshop got selected, that will be coming out very soon as we finalize those topics to put those out to the individuals who submitted. So mark your calendar if you haven't already done so. February the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th in Sacramento, right back at the Safe Credit Union Convention Center for the 23 conference. So with that, we'll jump to our job exchange. And again, recommending for those members, for cash members, take advantage of our job exchange and People's Choice. This is an opportunity for you to post your RFPs, to post any job openings, your recruitment for folks for your district, to be able to really reach out to our community and look for some of the great resources that are out there. Really, it's able to hit a diverse audience, both private, public and private, that are members in our cash community. So please take advantage of that opportunity that's available to you as a cash member. And next slide. So lastly, mark your calendar. The next cash day has changed. Just as a reminder, the State Allocations Board meeting was moved to Monday, August the 15th, which means that our next cash monthly update will be on Monday, August the 15th at 11 o'clock. We will be hosting the same meeting, and then we will be going right into our cash State Allocations Board meeting. So with that, I want to thank our panel and I thank everyone who's been here with us today. I want to thank the staff from Cash that put this information on for us every month and the hard work that they do to get all the current information out to you in a timely manner. So thank you all for all the work that you do to support our students and our teachers and our community. Appreciate everything and have a great rest of your day.